Hello, everybody. My name is Vahid Garousi. I'm based in the UK. I have a consulting firm. I also work for Queen's University Belfast as a professor. Myself and my collaborator, Alper, Buğra, Keleş from Turkey, from Testinium Corporation, we are going to present this practical tutorial today, model-based testing of mobile and web applications. And we also have two other collaborators in this project. So good morning or good afternoon to all the audience which are joining or listening to this presentation from across the world. In terms of outline of the talk about what's model-based testing using MBT in 3 projects. We have used MBT in several projects. We're just going to present 3 of them. And then we'll talk about benefits of model-based testing and when it's a good idea to use it. And then we're going to provide some pointers to more resources on MBT. And our goal is to make this presentation in 1 hour. All right. So what is model-based testing? It's the application of model-based design for systematic and automated test case design, and also optionally for automated execution of test cases. I'm going to show you one example from one of the systems that we will show you today as well in detail. The system under test is called Testinium. It's actually a test management tool developed by my partner organization that Alper works for, Testinium. So it's a system that you log in and you can create different types of Selenium tests and other types of tests. You can schedule them to run in different times, in different periods. And so it's a really test management, test execution, and test reporting tool, quite sophisticated and advanced. In the last years, some effort to automate. Well, we're doing automated testing on this test tool. So testing the test tool. This is a very small part of the model test models for this system. So essentially what you have here, it's this kind of the login page. After you log in, you go to something called dashboard page, like the main screen. So this is the start of the test engineers, we just designed the test models. So this test model is like a state setting. It's essentially what it is nodes and edges or transitions. Nodes are where you are in the system, and edges, so V for vertex, and E for edges means that actions or events you execute on the system. So for example, I go to login page first, and then I need to verify that I am actually in the login page. So in this verification, behind this node, you need to write some Selenium code that will do actually the assertions or verification points. Essentially, you just, what is the current page? Assert whether the current page is this. I mean, you can assert using the URL or some of the elements on the screen. From that, either you can do valid login or invalid login, right? So if you do valid login, you do valid login. So you provide a valid username password. And then you verify that the system, whether it will go. So and the beautiful thing is that when you run this test model, so that you will see the model running, and then you will see the system is actually changing the screens as if a person is doing it. And then this is the invalid input. So if it's invalid login, you're gonna assert whether this message about invalid login, and then you have to go back. The system has to go back in the login page. It shouldn't go to dashboard. So that's kind of this scenario here. There are lots of MBT tools, and of course, to apply MBT, we need good tools. There are more than a few hundred model-based test tools in the industry, open source or commercial, and we need good tools. We did an assessment a few years ago, about 2 years ago, and then among many tools, we selected a tool called Graph Walker with this URL. It's open source for web and mobile applications, and in one of our technical articles, we have mentioned why we chose it. So it's a very good tool. Now we're going to go talk in 3 projects. So testing our own large web application called Testinium. Testing the web application of one of our clients called BtcTurk. And testing 2 of UK's COVID mobile applications. So contact tracing. I mean, with all this COVID situation, there are lots of contact tracing apps, mobile apps developed by different countries and regions. So in the UK, I was involved actually as a consultant to test 2 of the UK's mobile applications. In the UK, there were several applications that developed. So here in this slide, what we are testing, what system we are testing. So this system is called Testinium. It's really a test map. As you can, website is testinium.com and testinium.io. Or this is the company and this is the system. And when you log in there, right, you can see dashboard. I know this is small, but you have projects, all test scenarios, all test suites, all reports. So you can see all your projects. For each project, you can see its test scenarios in Selenium or other test scripts that you have. And here, these are the latest runs. This is the run date, run time, test results. For example, for this test suite, about 150 tests have passed and 1 has failed. You can see the details. Here you can see your daily run plan, how many test suites are running, parallel tests running, queue tests are waiting, active tests. So there's different types of things that you can do with document testing. So it really helps test engineers to run their tests in a web-based standard. You don't have to install Selenium locally. Everything is on the web and cloud. So, okay, yeah. One more slide from me before handing over to my friend Alper. So we developed in the last few years lots of sophisticated test models for this system. So I'm showing here, in a few slides ago, I showed you the part of the login test model that you just log in and you check for invalid username. But this is the entire test login test model for login page. I showed you, I guess, this part of it, but now here you have invalid password. Whether when you, you have, for example, you forget your password, right? There's a page for forget your password. So we designed this model to test that and to assert and verify that piece. If you have if you try to log in with an unregistered email, so because sometimes your email is incorrect, sometimes your email is correct, the password is incorrect. So all those combinations are checked and different error messages are given. So you want to test all the combinations essentially. You can log in with GitHub, LinkedIn, Google, different type of things. All those are supported. And if you log in, you have to go to the system has to go to log into the dashboard page. So that's this transition. So as you can see, work, but it's not too much of work. So once you get to the habit, really momentum of designing these test models by a expert test engineer, things really are efficient, and we were able to go with a very fast speed once we got the first learning curve in the so-called modeling formalism, the type of format, the format of models. So yes, what's the behind the scene, right? So to make it to run automatically, of course, in a few slides, Mr. Alper will show you execution of model-based execution. For each model, for each node or vertex and edge, behind it, you have to develop Selenium code in Java or any other programming language. So in Java, for example, eValid login, I'm looking at this edge that is doing valid login, right? So I'm sure many of our audience would be familiar with Selenium language and the framework. You have the web element, you go to the, you find the element username in your screen, which is this, that's the username. And then you kind of clear it. So you erase it, so you programmatically erase it. You enter the email, which is valid. I'm not sure. Somewhere in the top of the object class, you have defined valid email. You try to find the object ID by password, which is this. So clear it. And then send key means really enter it, like programmatically, of course, not by hand or keyboard, but programmatically. And then you try to find the element login, which is this. It has a big name. I think it looks like XPath or the HTML ID. And then you click on it programmatically. So that's really what it does. It enters these things and clicks on that. Okay. Now I would like to hand over to the floor to my friend Alper to continue for a few slides.
Hi everyone, I'm Alper. I'm working as a project lead in senior test and quality coach at Testinium. Now I'm going to present you a quick demo for our MBT working for Testinium tool. So let me run. Actually, this is this section for demo. There are two models here, which Mr. Vahid mentioned: login and dashboard. Also, we have full models execution scenario set, but just for the demo purpose, I separated actually these two models for the demo. Let me run code. Okay. Now it's running. Okay. It will open the Testinium, and I will also connect to server, Focus Studio. Now it's it's running two models, login and dashboard. Like Mr. Vahid mentioned about the scenarios, we'll try to successful logging and invalid scenarios of logging, which is invalid email, invalid password. Let me connect. Yes, it's connected. Now you will see the model here and text execution. As I said, just two model here, just to unconfuse everyone. Okay, is forgot password. This age. Can go the same path again and again. So actually, by doing this, sometimes we can catch really different scenarios. We can run different scenarios, which is not possible by running manual testing and automation scripts. This actually increase our fault detection. Now a successful login, it directs to the dashboard. Let's see. Now it's here. We're finding dashboard page. Yes, it's come to the dashboard page. Now you can see here this turns, and then you go back to login page. Now doing the same, running the same path actually here on before. Okay. Actually, we just cleared all the guards here. Now it's go back to, it's actually view to dashboard page, and as you can see here the model. Now he's going to all scenarios page. Actually, he's trying to all the path we defined in the model, right? And you can see here how many steps it's running. 68, and also the fulfillment on the model. Yeah, just to demo purpose, we cleared all the guards here, so the model is continue until the until the make the all statement coverage 100%. So their states still untouched. Okay. Now fully covered all the states, but not transitions, but fully covered all the states in the model. Actually, the beauty and the power of model-based testing, we mostly using it, just executing the tests, executing the models randomly, and it helps us really create hard test scenarios that normally we can't create. So yes, running and running again. Okay, so From my side, this is the quick demo of the model-based testing running on Testinium. So actually, it will continue. I'm not sure. It's approximately, it will take like 10 or 15 minutes to complete all the models, because it can go the same path again and again and again and again. So it will continue until finish all the dashboard page, all the dashboard models, until we won't finish all the dashboard model. So it will continue. Now I will cut the demo here and leave the presentation to Mr. Vahid.
So thanks to Alper, my friend Alper. So now I continue from slide 10. I'm just going to talk a bit about just the general scope of this MBT of Testinium. So Alper showed you a live demo. We have many online other videos from our MBT projects of Testinium in a YouTube playlist, as you can see in the screenshot here. And this is going to be the short URL of that on bit.ly, bit.ly, and then MBT of Testinium that you can watch. In a nutshell, we developed a sophisticated test software via models and also Selenium code to test a given sophisticated SUT. Also, even to help other test engineers, we have made all the MBT test suite and also the Selenium glue code as open source in this GitHub repository that you can go ahead and download it and run. You can just download the Graph Walker and download these test suites and just run it essentially quickly so that you can learn and practice with it. All in all, in terms of size metrics for this MBT project, we developed 18 test models. So one is login, one is dashboard, and then a few others. There were 170 test nodes, 260 edges. In terms of line of code of the Selenium code was 4,700 line of code. Running the entire, so Alper showed you two models that will take 10-15 minutes, but if you run all the 18 models with all the combinations, that will take about 6 hours. And that will create about 28,000 test steps. That will achieve edge coverage in terms of model coverage on the test model. So lots of interesting stuff. So in terms of observations, so really we do a lot of testing and effective testing with less effort from test engineers. So it covers more test paths, and you only design the test models. And also test models are intuitive because they just show each screens of your web applications and then the transitions or the events that you can do. So really, it gives you more power or test effectiveness of in detecting real faults. And in the SUT, in the Testinium system that we have tested, we have detected so far 11 actually major defects. And thanks to MBT, and we have fixed them. And there are many more so intangible benefits, such as they make the work of test engineers more fun, more enjoyable. That we'll talk more at the end of the presentation. So now I'm going to move on to the next project which is an ongoing project as we speak for one of our clients, which is a large company in Turkey. Just a bit about this system that we are going to test as a second example, BtcTurk Turk. It's a large company in Turkey, founded in 2013. One of clients of Testinium Corporation, the Turkey's first and world's fourth largest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchange platform. And they have mobile for iOS and mobile apps for iOS and Android, and also a web application. And they have two versions. There is BTC, like a regular app, and then there's Pro version. So this is the kind of the Pro version, which provides more features. I mean, we're talking about the app itself. I mean, you can trade, right? You can see different prices at live, different currencies. You can buy them, sell them. You can see your own account and your own transactions, etc. So just the typical features of a Bitcoin trading platform. We decided in discussions inside our team and also with the client company, we decided to develop two types of MBT test suites for the mobile application. An end-to-end test suite, which is like a smoke test, which is kind of takes, it's faster to run, but tests less, and also a complete exhaust regression test suite. So this is like only the major parts, major app paths through the app, and this is exercise. The second one exercises all the pages, all the apps, and all the screens. So it's much more comprehensive. I'm showing we are showing here kind of well, similar to Testinium. This is a test model which is from the end-to-end test suite, which we are really testing the happy paths. Well, the notes and edges are written in Turkish because our test engineers are all Turkish, and that was much easily understandable. But I have translated them also to English by putting their English terms there, you know, what they are. For example, this is the term for start in Turkish. So start is the starting page. You go to login page. Once the login is successful, so we only look at the successful login and not unsuccessful, because this is again the smoke test or happy path. But in the full version, we are testing all the combinations. You log in successfully, it goes to all pairs. So this is kind of the, let's say, main page. You see all the pairs, right? Bitcoin to Turkish lira, and then ADA is another Bitcoin type to Turkish lira. You can see by US dollars, so you can filter them. You can see their trends and their current price. You can go to My Wallet. You can see how much money you have in different coins. You can go to a pairs detail page and you can buy and sell them. There's the sell successful, buy successful. There's a feature called limit. You can say if the price of a Bitcoin is reach this low price or this high price, then buy it for me. So whenever that condition is true, the system will do it automatically for you, even if you are sleeping. So I'm in the MBT of a BTC mobile app. Yeah, we developed lots of test models. 8 test models in total, which are kind of represent to 8 pages of the mobile app. As you can see, trade, prices, etc. 300 in total. They have 303 nodes. So each of them are nodes, and these are the 8 test models. 567 edges and transitions, each of these things. So it was quite a comprehensive thing. And we have a video demo of this on YouTube that now I will try to show that to you. So we are seeing essentially the video demo of our application again. It is in YouTube. I'll just make this small so you can see it. I can make it large again. So I mean, you have the URL in the previous slide, so you can see there. So if I essentially play this, it's about 5 minutes there. You can later watch it in detail, but I'm just going to show a bit of that. So this is the BTG Pro application on the right-hand side, and this is the model, test model that we have developed. As you can see, again, 8. Well, 7 of them are here in this version, but there are 8 in the final version. So it kind of goes there. You can see the execution live. Yeah, it's just starting up. Yeah, you see. It's putting some pin codes there. See, it put the pin code. It goes quite quickly, so I mean, we have to stop it to make sense of it. So it put the pin code, it puts the username out there in Turkish, but this is the email address, this is the password, and then login. It's kind of the login button. So it went. So there's a pre-login control, and then there's login panel. That's kind of the business logic of the application. Well, you see myself here as well because I am in the YouTube video, so as well. But you see the point, so I'm going to now go forward a little bit. Okay, that is the login. Yeah, here is the login has been done. Oh, that was done. Yeah, I think this is the right place. So here login has been done, and it has gone to a page that you can see your how much money you have in different bitcoins. This is my Turkish lira, and then these are the things. So I'm just going to not speak for a few seconds, and you can see the live execution. Going to different pages. So I hope it gave you the whole feeling of how it looks like. So I'm done with the screen share. So we move to the third example project that we have used MBT. It's an interesting topic. As you can see, UK COVID contact tracing apps. I was hired as a consultant to assess the quality of 3 apps in the UK. So Stop COVID Northern Ireland, that's for NI. This is a screenshot, I believe. Protect Scotland app, that was This one, yeah, and then NHS COVID app for England and Wales. So let's see what's going on here. So what we did, we developed MBT test suites for 2 of these apps. For NHS, this is National Health Service in England, and then Scottish app. This is kind of, as you can see, this is a UI flow diagram of the Scottish app, the COVID contact tracing. This is kind of the login screen. Then you go and register yourself, and you say you are over 18 years old. And then, God forbid, if you are COVID positive, then you go to the screen and say, I'm COVID positive, and then it will kind of notify the situation and, well, the people that you have been close with, contacts, and they will send the SMS to them. So it's quite, I'm sure some of you know how these apps work or what are they supposed to do. Because they trace contacts, and if somebody is positive, to notify them. And then how many days you have to quarantine, etc. So everything is in some of this UI. So each of them are the one app screen and the transition between them. So if we took these things, so we essentially reversed engineered this from the actual apps. And then with one of my one of my undergraduate students who was going to graduate, Mark Lee, he did a great job with me. Together we designed and developed these test models. So this is the NHS COVID app, and as you can see, we developed 12 test models for 12 screens of the app. Together there were 144 nodes and for about 500 edges. This shows the review symptoms, right? If somebody has the symptoms to be potentially COVID, you enter them there. And I think this is the node which is kind of, we don't want to occur, but if somebody has COVID, then he or she will say, well, I have this symptoms. Well, you have the COVID because you said you have those symptoms. So that's kind of, and then something else happens. I mean, in the game, the videos, we have the video for this as well online. And I guess for the sake of time, actually, I'm not going to play the video today, but the YouTube video URL is here. So anybody who's interested can go to YouTube and watch it. Similar to our previous demos, this video is again several minutes, just goes through this execution of model-based testing. So you can see, you can pause in the video, zoom it, and you can see what's going on inside these models. Again, to help other test engineers to learn from our work, all the test models and code are available in this URL in GitHub. So you can download it again, play it, and run it yourself. So now we are almost moving towards the end of the presentation. Let's talk about benefits of MBT. So we have used MBT, or I've used MBT actually since year 2003. So that's a long time of doing my PhD studies in Canada. My PhD thesis was on MBT. So more recently with Testinium, we have been working since 2019, but I've been using MBT for close to 15 or more than 15 years. It's really MBT helps us to cover more test paths, higher test coverage with less effort. So then everything is summed up, right? Saving time and money, leading to increased test effectiveness in detection of faults. Because for testers, one of the fundamental goals is that the test activities that we do are as effective, and means detection of faults if there are any in the system. We also, across over these years, we have observed that MBT also gives you lots of intangible but important benefits, right? More test effectiveness is tangible, right? You can almost feel it, and you can almost measure how many faults you found. But there are some benefits that you cannot, such as MBT makes the work of testing more interesting and more organized, according to feedbacks that we have received our team members. Interesting means, well, they are going to develop some test model and write test Selenium code for it. So it's like a software development work, really. It's a development work. You can clearly see your progress. You can see how many tests you have. It's a very precise and very really enjoyable engineering task. And ability to see the big picture of test case design. Because once you have the models that I showed, you see how the UI of the screen goes to different pages. You can see the events and nodes. And when you run them, as you saw in these demos that we showed you, you see how they're running. And you can kind of sit, watch, and back. You can sit back and watch, and you can schedule it to be. And if you are not available at that time, the system will record the video file as MPEG-4 or AVI file. You can watch it later. So the systems will take a video and image screenshot of the images so you can watch them later. So now we come to the point of when it is a good idea to use MBT. It's a proven approach for testing web and mobile applications. And the answer is it's almost always a good idea to use them, especially when the SUT is complex and has many pages and UI flows. Because here, the winning point, as also my friend Alper mentioned, the winning point of an MBT is when your SUT has many pages and also many UI flows, right? Even transactions and events. Then you can model them in the test models, and the MBT will show its strengths by really trying all the possible combinations and all the possible paths, and then giving you the chance of finding defects. And doing this manual, doing this thing by hand will take a huge amount of effort. So that's the where MBT really comes to help us. And last but not least, I'm going to show you some pointers to more resources on MBT. Then again, if you go to Google and do a Google search for model-based testing, you will see literally millions of hits. There are YouTube videos, scientific papers, weblogs, white papers by companies, a huge amount of, there are many, many books, or perhaps tens of books on model-based testing. There's one book that we, me and Alper and our team members, we especially like this particular book by these two authors. It's about actually the ISTQB. It's a part of the ISTQB series of books. Model-based testing essentials. It's a very nice book, very practical and very hands-on. We regularly read it in our projects. Also from our project so far on MBT, we have published several scientific articles. And one of the last papers is this one that I'm showing the screenshots on this web page. If you go on this URL, it's a 212 page. It's really a so-called experience report from our project. So we have shared details of how we have done MBT and what benefits we have observed. So some of those we shared them today in these slides, but many more details are available. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. And of course, during the live event, we will be very glad to hear questions from you, me, and Alper, and of course, our email addresses. The four of us are mentioned also here, so you can all. So feel free to contact us anytime. Thank you for listening.
Yes. So, yes. I would like very much to thank our presenters and speakers today. So thanks a lot for the very nice tutorial, Vahid and Alper. And I would encourage everyone to check out the chat and or live Q&A and ask questions there if you have. We see already there is 2 questions by Jacob and Ashish. And I would also encourage you to ask your questions directly. So if you would like to raise your hand and ask your question directly to our speakers, please do so that we can put you on the stage. So, Jacob, would you like to ask your question directly or shall I read it? Yes, we have raised hand, so please come to the stage. You have to accept the invitation very briefly, and then we can put you right next to our speakers. Okay, it's taking a moment. So can we put Jacob on stage? Yes, for the others, I would also encourage to raise your hand so that we can proceed quickly with setting up the stage. So please do raise your hands. And in the meantime, because it seems like Jacob has not yet accepted, I can perhaps start by reading the question out loud and then Jacob can comment.
Yes, that will be also, because I think I was looking, I guess we cannot see the questions here in the chat box. I mean, I cannot see any chat box. So if you could please read the questions, we would be glad to answer that.
Yes. So Jacob says, hello, and thanks for the great presentation. I have a question. Is it possible to include the shown model-based tooling toolchain? Where did the question go? Okay, it's moving away, sorry. Into some CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery like GitLab? If yes, are there any resources or examples how to do that? That's also a question that I was wondering about, so I would very much appreciate your comment on that.
Sure, certainly. That's a nice question. So perhaps I will provide some answers, and perhaps I will also ask my friend Alper to provide perhaps further comments if he wishes to. So actually, yes, it is possible. The open source model-based testing tool that we are using, as we had in the presentation, is called GraphWalker, and the address URL is in the slides. So we have already placed it in CI/CD executions every night or in any time interval that we wish to have. So in fact, we are using, the company. So the company that we are applying this is called Testinium, and actually Alper works for Testinium. The corporation Testinium has a tool called named Testinium, which is a test management and execution tool, a web-based tool. And actually, one of the examples actually testing that test system itself. In that system allows us, right, to schedule. So we have been able to essentially define that model-based test project as a test project inside Testinium, and schedule it to run anytime you wish, right? Every 2 hours, every 3 hours, any specific time at night, so that if it takes some of the executions take really long time, about 6 hours or more, so you can put it, for the middle of the night, and in the morning you will see the answers. So yes, but of course, I'm sure, it should be possible with Jenkins or other tools. So because it's just so we are running. So in terms of technicalities, we are running that GraphWalker in a command line tool. So you just say, so you just have your commands, right? You take GraphWalker, you give the name of your models, so you can essentially put that command in any CI/CD tool, and that will run them for you essentially behind the scenes. So let's see if my friend Alper wants to improve or expand the answers in any way.
Thanks, Mr. Wade. Actually, I totally agree with you. So we are doing this in Testinium, and now we are practicing. Actually, we have two MBT sets, one for end-to-end, one for regression, which we explained in the presentation was regression set, also MBT set. Now we are practicing integrating to our end-to-end model-based testing set to our CI/CD pipeline in BtcTurk. Right after we do, I can share the details. I can share the whole process with you guys. But in Testinium, we are already doing it. It's the MBT, so it's already integrated to CI/CD pipeline.
Very good. We have a bunch of other questions. So before proceeding with Ashish's question, which let us know that he's not able to accept the invitation, I would also encourage Andreas Ulrich and others to raise their hands so that we can start to put them in the queue. And in the meantime, I would like to ask the question raised by Ashish Mathur, which is, for the COVID app, did you have a repository of screens available to you? How many screens were there if you had one? And how long did you take to generate the model and the tests?
Very good questions. He's asking about the number of screens. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not 100% sure what he refers to, but perhaps I assume that what he means different mobile phone models. So again, I cannot see the chat box. So if you could clarify whether by screens do you mean different mobile phone models, right? Because we have iOS, different Android brands, and Samsung or all the other manufacturer models. The answer is yes. In our test execution methodology, we have access to a device farm. Actually, that also belongs to Testinium Corporation. So I forgot the exact number of them, but we have like a big room with lots of models there. and we can really run them on different. So actually, yeah, for the other systems, for BTC Turk and for the others, we are running them on device farm with different models, because sometimes the application may work on one model of the Samsung and may fail on a different Android phone. For the COVID app, we just tested on, I remember, on 2 models, because that was what the client had asked us, the Health Authority of Northern Ireland. So the 2 main phones that were the most popular ones they had asked us. Other part of the question was how much time it took to develop test models. Of course, that's an important question. It really depends on how well the test engineer or the test engineers who are going to develop these things are trained in model-based testing. So for that COVID one, it was myself and one of my students who had just recently graduated. I mean, the consulting took about 6 months, and really, well, I mean, I have been working with model-based testing for quite a long time, for 10 or 15 years at least. So we really trained our new graduate in the first 2 months. So we gave him the other examples that we have been developing already with Testinium, so he kind of learned them in the first 2 months. Myself and Alper, we helped him to learn, and then test engineer had very high performance in developing test models. So it's really just like almost everything else. If you train your engineers well, they will. The whole test and developing test models is quite an even enjoyable and fun activity. So they kind of like, because you kind of design models which directly execute. It's not just models, for sharing information or just on whiteboard. Some people draw some sketches. These models are executable. What you draw, just execute. So just directly, and as you saw, so during that test suite development, they can execute the partial models and see and fix the problems if there are any. But I would say that we have tested 2 of those apps. For a test engineer who is knowledgeable, each of them would take maximum like 3 weeks to 1 month, so maximum. So if he or she has been trained properly, so that's my answer.
One was regarding the number of screens. He was referring to the number of distinct pages that the app that you have to navigate through. And there is also another comment here, which is he can imagine that you could also use device cloud for the actual device testing. Did you use that kind of setup?
Yes, yeah. Well, I think I almost assumed that he meant that the second time that I heard the question. Yes. So, I mean, if you look at the slide, I mean, I have the slide in front of me. Slide 21. I hope you can have access to slides, or I can send you. I mean that. So in slide 21, we showed the so-called UI flow diagram. I'm not sure. Perhaps I asked Philip or other folks if they could show this in screen, that slide, if that's possible from technology point of view. Is that possible, Philip, to show one slide?
I think it might take a while. I'll try to sort that out, but I think we have also a bunch of other questions.
Sure,
and we already have
so
Andreas.
Yeah. I will.
We have Andreas and Thomas in the queue here, so I would invite Andreas to the stage to ask his question.
So, thank you for this interesting presentation. It's always good to have a tool running MBT and see how it's going on there on the screen. What I have observed in your presentation, you showed us examples using UI and modeling UI interactions. Have you tried also your tool for other kind of applications, kind of headless applications that are just accessed by API, for example?
Very good question. With this particular, methodology and tool, I'm just trying to think hard. Of course, we are doing API automated testing, but using other tools. A BDD tool we are using a BDD tool called Gauge. The website is gauge.org, Gauge, which is a bit, well, I would say more advanced compared to Cucumber tool and similar ones. Anyways, that's another interesting conversation. So we are doing API testing. With this methodology and the tool Graph Walker, it may be possible. I know that, yeah, I remember, well, it's developed in Scandinavia. By the way, this tool is developed, I guess, yeah, by a team in Sweden, if I'm not wrong. We have seen in its documentation pages that it's possible to test, for example, RESTful APIs using this tool, but we have not used this. But I'm sure that should be possible, because what happens is that, again, I mean, the details can find it in its web page, I'm sure. So everybody can find it, by the way, the tool. So if you just do a Google search for Graph Walker together, you will find the tool. Because in the model, you define different states and different transitions between different events that can take place. But of course, for the API, you have to, well, semantically specify them properly, right? So I think those events will be, I think, the sequence of different API calls that have to take place and different state of the system. So again, that should be, well, it should be 100% possible because it's in the API, it's in the documentation of the tool itself. But because I have not used it for that purpose, I cannot kind of give more details. So,
yeah, as I understand, you do the verification step after the input in the state, right? Which corresponds to the web page, and that should change perhaps if you do API testing.
Yeah, I think in API, I think in the nodes, like nodes are the states and also, sorry, of your system SUT, and also essentially we almost always do the assertions on states on the node. Edges are the events, or really events or stimuli, the so-called stimuli that the user is performing. So yeah, in UI, I mean, that's, as you said, it's much more sensible, because you say, well, click on this, click on that, go to that page, and then, for example, you click on login, and then in the next node you verify that you are in the login page. In API, it's my the way I can interpret it, but of course, if we do it, we can understand it better. I think the right way will be, let's say, full or web API, let's say it has, 50 methods. So you call the first one, right? So you call the first one, that should be the first edge. After the first one, of course, you would after each call, you want to verify something, right? So you call, for example, the login API. Well, if your login API, if you give the right parameters, it should really log you in. So the next node, you assert that whether the system has already logged you in. So you just go forward like that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Alper. So Alper, would you like to add anything?
No, thanks. Actually, we are planning to work on API side with MBT. Now we are working on that. But in some parts, actually in test plan, some parts we are calling API for the validation, but not for core API. Now we are working on that part.
Yeah. I know we are a bit short of time, but I just want to add one short sentence. Of course, you can use MBT for API testing, but that should be done with care. By care, I mean, I'm not saying it should not be done, but it should be only done because usually, right, API methods are supposed to happen kind of sequentially, and you don't have too many variations usually. And that's different to UI, right? In UI, you have so many paths. You can go different places. You can do like crazy things, right? And the UI, right? You can do invalid things. With APIs, of course, some variation is possible. So if there are not too many variations, then using model-based testing is not a good idea. So because model-based testing helps you when there are too many variations in the directions and the paths you can go. So that's just a thing to consider.
Very good. That's also a good point that Szilard has raised, and I would encourage Szilard to join, also to ask the question on stage if that's possible. So please raise your hand so that we can promote you to the main stage as well. But in the meantime, we also have Thomas Fellman waiting to ask his questions. So Thomas, please, welcome to the stage.
Okay, I must probably apologize because this was a kind of an automatic question. The Wim and the Gum usually, I fear, is not well known. However, Wim and the Gum are among the oldest standards that mankind actually uses in science, and they simply say, what is the difference between a count? You count nodes, and the metric. So you had in your slide, it is a metric, and the metric is naturally very useful. For instance, if you want to compare the amount of testing that you do with the functionality of the total functionality of the apps that you are actually testing. Wondering whether that was just a glitch or on purpose.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I just want to make sure, well, I understood most parts of your question, but perhaps I missed kind of, I think, because of the sound quality, or because, I mean, sometimes our accents are different from each other.
Mine is Swinglish, sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, well, I'm also not a native English speaker, but I also have an accent. All of us have, most of us have accents. Even English speaking, native English have accents. But, so what I'm saying, I think you meant the count, the number of nodes, right? Were you referring to that? How can we measure that?
A count is something that simply counts nodes. But if you have a metric, you can compare, say, what you actually count. This gives it something that you can be measured. That is, you can compare it with other measures, such as, I mean, my personal, I will come to that in the afternoon. I compare it with the functionality. So test size compared to functionality. My question actually was whether you do that, or whether you're, whether that was the intent of that slide referring to metrics.
Yes, I have. I'm also similar to you. I'm very passionate about metrics and measurement. You know, I've been, well, I have, you know, I have half of my, well, I have two jobs, consulting and also being a professor in university. So kind of, so metrics and measurement are extremely important, and we have been doing lots of that. I can answer you in a very long way, but I will try to keep it short. So we just showed you, the simple metrics, which was the number of nodes and edges. Of course, that's the most obvious one. But as you asked, that doesn't give us any indication of how thorough and how deep this testing was. For that, we have done a lot of work, and two of them. We have developed actually a coverage tool for our model-based testing approach. And actually, but you can find it. We have its link and its video in the presentation. We provided a YouTube playlist that has several videos. So one of those videos actually is a demo of our coverage tool. In our presentation, as you can imagine, we couldn't present everything because we have been doing this for 3 years. Lots of activities. So in the coverage tool, it's a web-based tool. So as the model-based test suite is running, now we are measuring 3 different types of coverage. So 3. One is code coverage, and code coverage 2 types. So we are measuring the server-side code coverage and client-side code coverage. So client-side is JavaScript, server-side is PHP or Java on server. So that is done. And that is updated every like 2 or 3 seconds as the system is running by model-based test suite. So it's a very nice activity to watch, really. You just see these charts. These are like bar charts. They just increase by time. And the other coverage is requirement coverage, as you said, measuring how much functionality you are testing. So for that, what we are doing is we have a so we take the so-called use case specification approach. So we kind of design the use case diagram of the system, and then we write different requirements by numbers, R1, R2, R3. I remember for one of the systems we had about, I think, 120 requirements. Like there are items R1, R2, and they are like just like the use case, right? So you have the happy path, alternative paths, happy path, alternative paths. And then in the model, we just put those, let's say, labels, right? We say that node is for R1, that node is for R7. Whenever it is reached, it just counts that how many of them are covered. So out of 120, it tells you covered 2, you covered 3, you covered 4. It just keeps increasing, and it gives you some good feeling of confidence that your requirements are being tested. In addition to that, of course, we have model coverage. We also report how much of the entire model has been tested so far. So kind of giving you the good feeling of. So yeah, that has been done quite extensively. I can tell you that.
Okay, thanks. That was the question. Thanks for the answer.
You're welcome.
Discussion. Be sure also to check out more of Thomas's ideas into his tutorial this afternoon. In the meantime, we also have another question from Silat. So Silat, welcome to the stage.
I also love model-based testing, and it's, you know, a passion, but there are always discussions like where can you apply? And my question is that would you have any area, domain that you would not suggest to use model-based testing?
Very good. By the way, I think I should let also my colleague, Mr. Alper, would you like to take that one, or would you like me to?
Please go on. Maybe I can add some extra after here. Okay.
Sure. So, by the way, to ask, also to kind of ask the person, I forgot his name, that asked question. So you are referring it still to, because we have, again, with this methodology is just, it's the most suitable for web and mobile applications. So it's web and mobile applications. Actually, yes, I have a good answer for you, because now, because I was thinking about our work with Alper. We had actually one client, and of course I won't mention their names, but they were developing a system in Turkey, a large web-based system. I'm trying to say it in a way that it's not obvious which company is that. It was a kind of energy resource management. So it was yeah. Oh, you said the company name.
Enerjisa üretim. Enerjisa üretim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I mean they have let's say like generators, right? I mean they have diesel or fossil or whatever, you know, wind turbines, different location of Turkey. And they have a central web-based management and monitoring system that you can see how much each turbine is producing, how much efficiency, you know, all those interesting physics-related things and energy-related things, like prices, units. So huge amount of data, and so in one larger screen you would see like perhaps 200 values, you know, and they would just keep changing. You know, the wind is coming, wind is going, and all these things. So of course we tried to do model-based testing. Of course we could still do it, but it was challenging because the classical problem of making the assertions, because it won't, you of course you're seeing the value, but you cannot assert the value itself, right? You won't know. I mean, how would you know what will be the wind tomorrow, or what will be the amount of energy produced on each second, because everything is dependent on weather and many other things. So when the outputs of a system are not, you cannot predetermine them in a way. I mean, of course, that kind of tells us in the indication that you can only, that goes beyond actual model-based testing. If it goes to the fundamentals of test automation, you can automate it, but you cannot automate the verification phase. You can automate going to that page, but you cannot verify what you are seeing. That's correct. So that, I know some people are now in terms of cutting edge technologies. Now some people are using AI to just like human being to do the verdict or the test oracle feature too. But it's still almost perhaps 99% of testers is still, when the outputs are not we cannot determine them. Well, that part still stays manual. So, and the same issue goes for the model-based testing. So that would be one of the examples that model-based testing, I mean, cannot help you much there.
I see that. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Thanks a lot, Gilad. And we do have about 3 minutes more to ask a few questions. So if you have any questions, please do raise your hand, or if you cannot speak, then write in the Q&A section. And in the meantime, I also have one little question, which is concerned with the selection of the MBT platforms. You did mention that you arrived at a short list of 2 platforms, if I recall correctly, in the beginning of your presentation, but can you very briefly elaborate what you considered and what was the kind of the critical factors that you focused on?
Yes, very good question. Yeah, I do not know which slide we have mentioned it, but actually our candidate tools were more than 2. I think they were more than 10 tools we had in our pool of candidates. Well, by the way, the details of how we selected them is mentioned in one of the technical articles, and I think that the URL should be somewhere in the presentation, or the name of it that you can find on the internet as well. But I'm going to explain it. So a few years ago, I mean, for the classical problem of which tool to select, we had done a kind of, let's say, systematic exercise a few years ago, and we had identified, by looking at all the suggestions on internet, we looked at about 110 weblogs to see how different people have shared their opinions of what criteria should be used for this tool, the right test tool. Anyways, the criteria, I think there were more than 10 criteria or so, but main ones were like this. The fitness of the tool to your test requirements, of course you should, or the test objectives, right? So and test needs that include, so that those requirements of course include the type of system you are testing, right? So we're testing web and mobile applications, so we could only choose a model-based testing tool because I think, as one of the previous folks was saying, people of course have applied model-based testing in, well, they still apply, for example, in automotive industry. So, well, I have right now another project ongoing with German BMW and automotive industry. I mean, most of those successful automotive companies are using model-based testing for testing embedded software, testing control systems, and that's has been used for at least 30 or 40 years. So, but and then of course there are many MBT tools for that domain, which won't help us too much because we are working at the mobile and web applications here. The other one was the other criteria was whether we could really customize the model-based testing tool. And that's an important thing because, of course, we can get a commercial tool, and if you get a very simple license, they won't let you, of course, they won't give you the code, or they won't really give you consulting on changing the tool for you. So we were quite lucky, and I should thank the developer of GraphWalker, which was extremely helpful for us because it's open source, and actually, in this presentation, we didn't share it with you, but we have made several improvements to different parts of it. So we have now essentially a very good of its code base, because the algorithm to change states, the algorithm of coverage, so many features of it we can control and revise if we need to. And so for that reason, in the several, at least 5 or 6 criteria that we looked, this was clearly the winner, the best choice for us.
Thanks a lot. And with that, I think we have arrived at the end of this session. It tells me here that we have already exceeded our time by about 1 minute. So with that, I would like to thank our presenters and speakers very much once again, and also all the question askers from the audience. A very interesting discussion, very insightful questions, and very interesting answers also from our speakers. So a virtual round of applause from everyone. And yes, with that, we close this session. We have about half an hour of a break. So make sure to use the meeting hub and connect with our speakers, or also with other attendees. You already got to know a few of them that showed up here on stage for the questions. And we'll continue at 10:30 Central European time with our next tutorial, which will be a very interesting feature, a live workshop on building continuous Q&A, not question and answer, but quality assurance strategies around continuous integration and delivery pipelines with Silad Cell, which you already got to know from one of the last questions asked. So enjoy your break, connect in the meeting hub, and see you later in this conference.
I also want to say that everybody can contact us by email with any questions later on as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.